Thanks, Roger. Well, greetings. Okay, here we're going to go again. Before. My name is Mitch Walker. I'm the principal co-founder of and advisor to the Institute for Contemporary Iranian Psychoanalysis, which is now in its 4th year of operation. Actually, I've been serving in this way behind the scenes, I do this, it means in quotes, behind the scenes, so to speak, for more than 11 years, as the early pre-institute public talks then being given by Chris Kilborn and Doug Sadonic, which themselves had taken over from an even earlier series I had been offering, as these pre-institute activities have since developed into the better articulated formats being seen today and into the future. Therefore, it marks a significant shift in my participation in this institute to address you directly in this fashion, one motivated by a growing interest to become more actively involved in institute educational efforts. As someone who could be thought of as a, quote, gay tribal elder, unquote, in our homosexual community, to use a currently popular phrase, I am in that capacity feeling a growing pull or moral call to share my life experiences, views, and sensibilities in accessible forms of interpersonal public exchange, due to what seems to me to be an expanding community need and readiness for such seasoned people as myself, and for the sorts of specific considerations I will detail in my comments below. To inaugurate this expanded activity, I have prepared some remarks called Gay Liberation at a Psychological Crossroads, a commentary on the future of homosexual ideology and establishment of the Institute for Contemporary Iranian Psychoanalysis in 4 parts, delivered in honor of the 3rd anniversary of the Institute, which consists of a revised and extended version of a 2-part discussion offered last fall. Tonight I would like to present the initial talk, which is called The Golden Opportunity to Birth a Homosexually-Centered Psychoanalysis. With this 4-part commentary, I will outline a perspective for considering current liberatory challenges and opportunities facing us as gay and lesbian persons and a community in relation to the founding of the Institute for Contemporary Iranian Psychoanalysis. This is not to imply, in regard to the organized same-sex loving minority, that other kinds of identities, persons, or viewpoints are not important or valid here or elsewhere, only that I will be speaking as a gay-identified homosexual, focusing on gay topicality and signification. I should also point out that I will be doing so as a male homosexual, therefore my comments will, in part, more aptly pertain to gay men, but I hope not to the exclusion of an equitable lesbian appreciation. And my apologies for the inevitable gender bias that is present in these remarks. It actually seems to me that sapphic women's procreative possibilities may realistically be of even greater significance than those of their gay male peers, and I hope that in the future, this sublime gynecoid potentiality can be increasingly directly explored and most richly activated. I might also mention that I have chosen to prepare these remarks in writing beforehand and then read them to you here, not only to have the material well thought out and clearly documented in an easy distributive form, but more so through such an appropriately scripted opportunity to somewhat queerly invoke rhetorically, with vigorous thought and sincere feeling, a powerfully stimulative conception of gay psychological valuation, provocatively unprecedented in conventional social discourse. And in so doing, to accordingly undergo with everyone here today an important and meaningful public ritual, the witnessed incantational performance of that pioneering invocational statement. Additionally, I should let you know that this talk will be pretty intellectual in the sense of trying to consider and handle ideas seriously and responsibly, but not too seriously, I hope. and in that conscientious sense, the discussion will get fairly dense. Though, even though I've tried to convey its ideational expression in plain English as much as possible. Nonetheless, due to this cumulative intellectual substantiality, it could be a little taxing to keep up with. So I will attempt to read the following statement with that in mind, in order to assist the thoughtful listener in better following along. This is also a major reason why we have provided for you a hard copy of the talk when you came in tonight, in case referencing it as I speak may additionally aid in its improved comprehension. Gay liberation at a psychological crossroads. The golden opportunity to birth a homosexually-centered psychoanalysis. It seems to me that the historical gay liberation movement of actually the last century and a half is today at a profound ideological and practical crossroads in terms of its greater future development and even its continued creative viability, due to the interlocking combination of its own growing success and the fierce persistence of homophobic forces traditionally deployed against it. And not only, or even in the end, most importantly, as that terrible bigotry is still applied in mean-spirited opposition to valuable homosexual realization by persons and ideologies external to gay people themselves, but even more importantly, as that ancient form of social scapegoating has been and is hurtfully impacting, maturationally becoming, and individually being meaningfully same-sex loving now. The historic truthfulness of gay liberation, that there are and always have been individuals who are indigenously aligned erotically and romantically, primarily to others of similar biological gender, that such people have the inherent right to respect, identify with, and live life out in terms of this compelling amatory alignment, and to appropriately develop shared values, cultures, and communities with others of like mind. The intrinsic validity of this progressive humanizational sensibility has finally led to great bravery, sacrifice, and persistence to increasing acceptance and comprehension by homosexuals of ourselves as such, to the dignificational personalization of being amorously same-sex oriented, and accordingly, to characterological achievement of today's integrated and empowering gay ego identity, one which can effectively engage with the world to meet sexual, romantic, and other basic interpersonal needs caringly, humanely, and satisfyingly. As this just and long-needed truthfulness has become better tangibly realized, homosexual folk have cultivated and fortified ourselves in support of collective association to succeeding degrees of clarified self-definition that have revolutionarily transformed not only our own lot in life and that of our immediate successors, but as well affected the entire human world, increasingly so. However, the loathsome forces of virulent homophobia have not in consequence been altogether rooted out by any practical means, although our deservedly greater success in more recent historical time as individuals and a community in reclaiming homosexual content and process for ourselves in the world may deceptively make it seem as if the vile power of social bigotry had been successfully enough banished, particularly for oneself and for the immediate affinity of like-minded others. Thus, the brightness of our worthy achievements can also cast an obscuring shadow. It is perhaps not then an obscure coincidence that the soothing doctrines of gay assimilationism now rule our community's dealings and formulations, with only occasional exceptions. And such ideologies accept homosexual identity on the basis that same-sex loving peoples are otherwise only different from everybody else in relatively minor ways, such as in terms of the gender that we do it with in bed. That in all essential ways, such as the legal or moral, we are just the same. And while it seems true to me that the ethical ideal of democratic equality is indeed fair and realistic, it is also true that its oversimplified acceptance can reduce or block appropriate appreciation of how homosexuality is not heterosexuality in some very profoundly implicated ways, and how its proper individuation in people would accordingly proceed not in an assimilating or homogenizing fashion, but rather in a gay-centering manner, uniquely prospective and importantly contributive in its own distinct right. Thus, the strategic reign of gay assimilationist ideologies in gaining their very socio-political successes can also be promoting, to that validational extent, a paradoxical negation of what makes being gay, gay for members of the concerned community otherwise benefited, thereby fostering a discordant contradiction thus so sympathetic or helpful to the ugly forces of heterosexist hatred still working their nasty will on us, most acutely and dangerously as the Trojan horse within, as persistent or deep-seated internalized homophobia. The unfortunate limitations of gay assimilationism, as well as the relentless pressures of conservative social attitudes generally, can be noted throughout the gay community today in concert with the tremendous losses we have suffered from AIDS. One may fairly observe a manifest decrease in some ways in homosexual community presence, vitality, and creativity, particularly in those metropolitan locales most successfully and long-lastingly liberated for same-sex loving folk, as one manifestation of these inhibitory and corrosive factors not presently being sufficiently adequately dealt with. On the level of ideology, we can see by the relative sterility and stagnation of assimilationist-oriented gay liberation theory and practice in not being able to more powerfully address subjective homosexual growth after securely coming out as a crucial manumissional factor in our movement's greatest possible future success, that a much more serious level of comprehension is needed of adult homosexual personhood, its origins, composition, possibilities, oppression, and freedom in terms of a more complete gay liberation. In my experience, it is absolutely not the case that recounseling to one's same-sex loving orientation and forging a healthy gay identity, which is socially successful, although absolutely pivotal steps in appropriate self-empowerment, resolve all or even the most poisonous influences of not only growing up alone in a hateful alien world, homocentrically speaking, but on top of this, of having to ongoingly function as valuably homosexual vis-a-vis a social universe, which is still vastly inhumanely biased against that. Thus, while the just gains we have made in integrating our sexuality and rejuvenating our self-definition are rightly to be celebrated and continuously confirmed and extended, these very achievements, particularly in the persistently threatening context of powerful opposing forces, can help mask an equal necessity to then deal with deeper-seated internalized homophobic effects, so as to reach a better and truer basis to be more fully personally liberated, empowered, realized, and satisfied as a self-respecting and progressively oriented lesbian or gay human being in today's challenging world. These concerns are ultimately, or most aptly, related to that knowledge domain called psychology, by which I mean, first, a name for the encompassing realm of subjective human phenomena, and then therapeutically based attempts to study, comprehend, and better engage that living but intangible reality. Here, those efforts most prominently arising in the last 100 years from the ideological system called by Freud psychoanalysis. Thus, experiences of sexual desire or romantic love are psychological in nature. Genesis and operation of sexual orientation likewise occur psychically, and achievement of a gay identity similarly manifests as well, no matter what exterior factors or forces may have played a part historically or otherwise in that self-distinguishing manifestation. I am talking here about the interior psychology of becoming, being, and growing over the lifespan as a worthy homosexual person today and into the future, both these discrete subjective phenomena themselves and their attempted psychodynamic comprehension. I am suggesting that as we cultivate such an insightful, introverted appreciation in the developmental context of historical gay liberation, an intellectual recovery effort still just beginning after decades of homophobic prejudice in published psychological thinking, a more expansive perspective is revealed about homosexual psychological freedom and complete maturation that locates the worthy achievement of a secure gay identity as the auspicious start to an even more profound phase in becoming fully personally same-sex loving, one that is best taken advantage of, where possible, so as to better thwart bigoted intentions and reach our superior actualizational possibilities. One that requires and produces a growing facility for that singular type of supportive or affirming psychic self-awareness by which the alchemy of enriching interior initiation and constitutional transmutation can best be appreciated and enabled homosexually.